Our beloved father, Jerome, has said that interest rates are rising, and you've been on the sidelines waiting to purchase a home, but now that you see that interest rates are rising, you're trying to rush in and buy a home so that you can lock up those historically low interest rates. And in today's video, I'm going to go over a number of tips for those first-time home buyers. What's up, guys? It's Avery here. If you're new to the channel, typically I talk about personal finance as well as investing in real estate. And on the token of real estate, I've personally purchased 3 properties, 2 multifamily properties, as well as a single family, and I'm looking to purchase my first Airbnb in 2022. So I've learned a couple of things over the course of purchasing these properties, and I'm hoping to share them today. But before I share those things, make sure you go ahead, scroll down, and click that like button for me. The first tip and the most important tip is making sure that you find a good agent. If you are trying to win a home in this specific market, this seller's market that we are currently in, you need to have a good agent on your team who can navigate you through this market, who can help you write a competitive offer, and who knows what they're doing and will answer and communicate with you effectively because things are going off market extremely quickly. You want to make sure that they've closed deals in the last year and a half or so and know that they've won on properties so that they can win a bid for you so that you can actually get into a home. And if you're looking to buy a rental property or do a house hack, which I've done a couple of times, you want to make sure that that real estate agent that you're utilizing has done those things as well so they can help you navigate through those things. You want to make sure they've invested themselves, especially if they're trying to help you get into an investment. Really, that's the most important thing, that they're an effective communicator and that they've closed deals in the last year and a half or two so that you can do the same thing. Tip number 2 would be using multiple lenders. Many people, when they're going to purchase a home, may go through a national or large bank like the bank that they bank with, like Wells Fargo or Bank of America or Citibank, or another big bank like that. But typically those banks will have the worst interest rates as well as terms and higher closing costs than a lot of other type of lending institutions. So if you're going to go out and get a loan for a property, unless you have an all cash offer, then you're going to need a loan. You want to go talk to a mortgage lender, or you can talk to local banks or smaller credit unions from the area that will most likely get you the best rates. I personally think mortgage lenders are the best way to go because they go out and look at a bunch of different products for you, do the legwork, and hopefully give you the best product that they can find you out there. When you're going ahead and talking to multiple lenders and trying to get a pre-approval, because you need a pre-approval before you're looking at properties, you can't purchase a property without a pre-approval, again, unless you have that all cash offer. You need to make sure that you do it within 14 days so that it doesn't affect your credit score too much. If you do it within that time period and talk to, say, 5 lenders, and they all do a hard inquiry on your credit report so that they can see your credit score, because the better the credit score, the better the interest rate that you're going to get. The creditors out there know that you are just shopping around and being a savvy consumer, and they see, well, this is only just 1 hard inquiry rather than 5, so it only docks your score a couple of points rather than if you waited 2 weeks in between each one. That would be seen as 5 in total, and it would dock your score a whole lot more. The next tip, and I think the most important, is that you stay within or well below your budget. You may have seen a bunch of TV shows like HGTV where the couple goes out and looks for a property, and they have all of these properties and they're typically right at their budget, and usually there's one house that's slightly above their budget. The reason you have a pre-approval is because that is your max budget, and how a lender calculates your DTI and the amount of monthly payment that you can pay on a mortgage is based on 55% of your gross income. Yes, your gross income, your income before taxes. So if you make $1,000 a month in gross income before taxes, they're saying you can spend $550 per month on housing, which is a lot of money compared to the amount of money that you're making. I think that you should stay well within that budget and try to spend less money, because you are going to feel much better about your finances and making that mortgage payment and not feeling underwater on your mortgage than if you went all the way up to that budget or even slightly above, if that's possible. When you go to buy a home, there are also far more costs associated with it than when you were renting. When many people look at should I rent or should I buy, they just see my rent is $2,000, my mortgage would be $1,800, so I'm gonna save money. But in reality, there are so many more costs associated with owning property, like a lot of maintenance costs. You're going to want to do some renovations and make the place look a lot better, as well as the fact that you've spent a lot of money on this place to purchase it. and you have the down payment and closing costs also, and you want to put more money into the property because you want it to feel homey. You're going to be here for a while. You want to make it seem like it's super nice, so you might spend more on furniture or other items than you would have otherwise if you were renting. So just make sure that you keep that monthly payment at a very comfortable rate so that you don't feel like you're underwater and always stressed about where that money is coming from and if you can actually afford that mortgage. And it's also very important to keep that monthly rate low, because if you lose your job or there is a low market cycle, like we've had a crash, you can still handle that payment very comfortably and get through a crash. Because if you own a home with the long term in mindset, if you want to own it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you're more likely going to have a positive outcome and be able to get through all of those ups and downs of the market cycle than if you have too high of a monthly payment, the market crashes and you feel like you have to sell because you can't afford that payment anymore. No one wants to be in that situation. The next tip would be buy an ugly house. Buying an ugly house doesn't sound like something that many people want to do. They want to buy a move-in ready or a flipped house. But let me tell you, flipped houses are usually done very poorly. People who are flipping cut a ton of corners, things that people who are regular home buyers don't see on the surface, but something that now that I've done a lot of renovations myself, I'm able to see. But make sure you don't buy that flipped home or that super nice home, because one, you're not getting a bunch of equity right away unless you are buying it at a vast discount. If you can buy an ugly house, do a bunch of renovations to it, or just some renovations like painting, flooring, maybe a backsplash on the weekend because you grabbed your buddy's tile saw machine and now you know how to use it. Those kind of things are going to put a lot more money in your pocket than if you just bought that move-in ready home. If you buy that move-in ready home, the only way that you're appreciating is just through the market. But if you buy that home that needs some repairs, you can get forced appreciation through those renovations. And same as the last point, if you buy at the top of the market cycle and you buy the nicest house on the block, you are going to lose the most amount of value in your home. And again, if you can't handle that payment, you're gonna have to sell and you're gonna lose a lot of money. If you at least buy an ugly house and then get it up to that nice house, if the market drops back to where you purchased it for before you did those renovations, at least you're kind of net even, barring the amount that you put into the renovations. So that's something to think about when you go buy a house. I always recommend not buying the nicest house in the neighborhood. Number 5 would be looking at poorly marketed houses. This has worked very well for me in order to get into properties when it seems like everything was a little bit more competitive. So the second property that I ever purchased was listed at $800,000. And it was listed well above what the value of the property actually should have been. And it kept going down and down because people thought, well, this is far too expensive. And eventually it was at $725,000. And I personally offered $678,000 with an $8,000 closing credit, which essentially looks like a $670,000 offer to the seller. Same thing happened with this property that I'm sitting in right now. It was listed at $395,000, which was well over what it should actually be worth. And I ended up getting it under contract for $345,000. For whatever reason, people feel uncomfortable about offering less than the list price, but typically if you see these properties that are listed way too high and then you offer below the market value or at market value, you're more likely to get it. But lately, a lot of people and a lot of realtors who are smart have been drumming up demand by putting it slightly below or at market rate, and then more and more people are interested because they view it as a good deal, and then they offer more and more and more, and that's why it goes so much over ask price. But if you can find the inverse of that, where it's not an intelligent realtor, because there are a lot of those out there where they've listed it too high and then you can offer a lot less, there's just going to be less competition, especially if you couple that along with an ugly house in a nice neighborhood. Number 6, and a very important one, and this has to do with all of your funds and feeling comfortable about buying that property, is having a buffer or somewhat of an emergency fund for your property. Same way you should have an emergency fund for yourself if you lose your job or are no longer able to work. This is very important because there are a lot of expensive things that come to fixing and needing maintaining in a property. If the HVAC blows up, or if there is a siding fix, if you need new windows, the roof starts leaking, those are all $10,000 jobs, and $10,000 is obviously a lot of money. So if you have some type of buffer because you bought a home that is well within your budget and you needed to put less for a down payment, then you're going to feel much better about any needed repairs or renovations that you're going to have to do, because things do break and deteriorate in a home, and there's always more and always more things that you can fix, or things that break all the time. It seems like it's a never-ending cycle of things that are breaking. Number 7, and this is something that I think probably 98% of people definitely do not do when they go purchase a home, is actually do some math. Does it make sense for you to purchase a home? Do you think it's actually going to increase in value? Just because you buy a home does not mean it's an investment and that it's going to appreciate. There's many people in many markets where they've purchased a home and it's continued to stay the same value, but maybe it's the same price or less than if they were renting, so it could make sense in that scenario. But potentially if it was still more than the cost of if you were renting, then you could have potentially taken that money for that down payment, invested it elsewhere, and made more money. So there's some math associated with this, and one great place that you can look is the rent versus buy calculator in New York Magazine. I will put that in the description below, where you can look at potential maintenance costs as well as the cost versus renting and see if it actually makes sense for you to go ahead and buy, or if you should just continue renting and have that lifestyle and then invest your money instead. More often than not, if you buy a good property where you are doing these things where you keep that budget low and you buy the ugly house in the nice neighborhood and you renovate it up, buying will make a lot of sense in the long run, especially if you turn it into something like an Airbnb or rental long term that'll start bringing you in cash flow every single month. Overarchingly, I really want you to make sure that when you go buy a house that you can actually afford it, and if there is a crash, which there will inevitably be sometime in your lifetime, that you feel okay about holding on to that home so that you're not panic selling it at a loss, or selling it because you have to, because you no longer can afford the payments, because we've had a crash and then you've lost your job and you don't have an emergency fund or a maintenance fund for your property. Those are all very important things so that you can hold on to this property in the long run. And the last thing that you need to go ahead and do, since you're still watching, is go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit that like button if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any tips for investing in real estate and things that you can do with your money in order to build your wealth. And if you like me here, don't forget to check me out on Instagram as well as TikTok. I like to make a lot of the same videos, but also in short form. So thanks again for watching, and more wealth is coming your way.